So it finally happened. NASCAR racing at the Los Angeles Coliseum. After so much talk, after so much debate, was the race worth it? We're going to talk about 5 takeaways from this event at the Los Angeles Coliseum and much, much more. So, NASCAR racing at the Los Angeles Coliseum. No race that has meant so little from a racing perspective has generated such a fervent debate. And so in this video, we're going to talk about a lot of the things, the biggest talking points, I'll say, from this event, which is kind of funny because you look back and you think about it, and the Daytona clash was very much hotly debated, especially in the last few years. It seemed like everybody was upset at the end of the clash. And I will say this, it seemed like everybody was upset going into the clash happens, and everybody's happy at the end of it. So just based on that, I think this is a success. However, because it's me, and we're talking about NASCAR, we're going to start negative. And that is the number one thing that we learned from this Los Angeles Coliseum clash is that Fox and their broadcast was a complete disaster, save for one thing, and we'll talk about that in just a second, but there were weird camera angles. A short track race, a quarter of a mile, I think was the length of the track, maybe a little bit longer, and Fox decided the big brain move was to zoom in as close as they could to the cars, and you could see virtually nothing. And for a race and a track where things were so action-packed, so hot and heavy, this was, believe it or not, the wrong decision. And I think the viewers got a much worse experience than the people at the racetrack actually did. Also, the audio coverage was weird. Michael Waltrip tried to do the grid walk and then disappeared because his mic just didn't work and he was just gone. I know he was kind of participating in some of the heat race coverage, but he was just gone. The pre-race was a total disaster. Nothing worked. They were introducing people at the wrong time. God only knows what was going on. And I think the biggest problem I had with the Fox Sports broadcast is that ultimately they weren't broadcasting a sporting event. And I think the race was like the least of their priorities. I think they were way more interested in the concerts. I think they were way more interested in the girls from USC. I think they were way more interested in virtually everything but the race. And I think it showed. The one positive, the big major positive, was Tony Stewart in the broadcast booth. Tony Stewart was as good as I thought he would be. He proved me right. Tony Stewart was wonderful to listen to. Brought a lot of energy, humor, and knowledge to the broadcast. And it was, unfortunately, at his expense, funny when his car crashed and his car broke, and Clint Boyer really let him have it on that. I thought he had good chemistry with Mike Joy. I thought, of course, he had great chemistry with Clint Boyer, as you would, a former employee and a former boss. It was nice, actually, when Jeff Gordon kind of joined for a little while during the pre-race. And it was also funny to see Chris Myers get walked in front of during the pre-race, just from an announcer's getting angry standpoint. Hopefully it'll be in one of those compilation videos very soon. The number 2 thing that I took away from this, and some people already knew this, but Los Angeles sports fans are very, very weird. Very weird. Because all this hype throughout the week, and really the months leading up to this race, was the crowd's going to be huge. The crowd's going to be amazing. It's going to be an awesome event. Turn on the TV, and it's sparse. There's like nobody there. I mean, could not believe. I was like, oh my God, this is a disaster. This is a disaster. As it turns out, and as I learned today, mainly because I'm not a baseball fan. All the baseball fans on Twitter let me know this, and it ended up bearing out. Los Angeles sports fans show up late and leave early. And they showed up really late to this race. I'm not sure, honestly, how much NASCAR promoted the fact that there were going to be heat races during this, because I could not believe if the people who paid a full price ticket to go to this thing chose to miss that much of the event in which they purchased the ticket for. I mean, I guess if you have that kind of disposable income, more power to you. But I was surprised. And I'll be damned, as soon as Ice Cube was done with his halftime show, the people started leaving again. So I swear, there may have been people who were there, maybe an hour. And God only knows how long it took them to drive, find parking. I did see people were like around LA Coliseum were like scalping the hell out of the parking for this. I think I'd seen it at least one place that was charging $100. Oof. The one takeaway I would say from the LA fan base, because I think, once the fans were actually there, it was a great atmosphere. However, if the fans in LA are this fickle and you're trying to grow the sport, you're NASCAR and you say, okay, we're in deep doo-doo, we need to fix some things. What do we need to do? Well, we need new fans. We need new, enthusiastic fans. These fans may be new, but it doesn't seem like they're quite as enthusiastic. And maybe they'll grow into that. Again, this is the first year of the event, so it's hard to judge that hardcore. But I also wonder how many one-and-done fans. We'll have to see what next year brings. However, I will say this, that I think the TV product, or at least what the fans saw on TV, I think people will make the trip out. So whatever, fair-weather LA fans you end up losing, you may gain some from elsewhere around the country. Number 3. Notice how we haven't talked very much racing yet. We're not going to talk very much racing during this. The halftime show. So let me get this out of the way first. I hate that that's a thing in racing. Just in general, no, bad, bad NASCAR. However, this worked for this specific event, and I think it worked specifically because Ice Cube is one of the greatest entertainers of our generation. He was fantastic. I was extremely entertained. I, in fact, was like, oh, I'm just going to take out the trash during this halftime show. I don't care. But as soon as Ice Cube started, I was like, okay, all right, I'll watch. So, but you're probably not going to get Ice Cube every year. And they probably don't want to get Ice Cube every year. They're going to want to, they're going to want to get new people in there and have a different concert every year. So the concert's probably not going to work out as well as this one did. This, I think, was lightning in a bottle. And again, I hope that the positive reception from this doesn't give the wrong impression. Ain't nobody want a concert in the middle of Daytona 500. And if you do, I'm sorry. Go find another sport. All right, let's actually talk some racing. The track itself, honestly, I wish was a permanent facility. It was fantastic, honestly. I had some doubts, and certainly I think it does lend itself a little bit to just crashing into someone to pass them. But I once you got a lot of cars out there and you got some lap traffic becoming involved, I thought the Los Angeles Coliseum made for a great short track. And quite honestly, I look at this and I look at the atmosphere and I say, is this really the only place you can do a major short track racing event? I know there's Bristol, I know there's Martinsville, but elsewhere, you can't recreate this in the South. You can't recreate this in the Midwest. That's, I guess, the question that I have, and I think you could. It's just going to be up to NASCAR whether or not they want this to be their kind of racing. I will say, 20 to 60 miles an hour was a great debut for the next-gen car. It was low risk, so, and I say low risk, and guess what I'm going to talk about next, but from the perspective of, hey, you're not going to have a lot of aerodynamics playing a factor in this, this was perfect for that purpose. And again, it was a fairly entertaining race. I know the finish wasn't probably what a lot of people expected, myself included. I thought for sure Kyle Busch was going to wreck the hell out of Joey Logano. Didn't happen. The only real wreck, the intentional wreck that we had was, ironically, Kyle Larson stuffing Justin Haley from Colleague Racing into the wall. And I think Colleague Racing, by the way, has proven that they are going to be a hell of a team in the Cup Series this year. Yeah. So that's the final point. Nice little transition talking about wrecks. Number 5. Next gen concerns. Okay, so we know that there's a car and part shortage right now in NASCAR. And it's going to be an issue at some point during this year. I'm probably going to have to do an entire video talking about this because I don't think a lot of people really understand how dire in some ways this could be. So they tore up a lot of stuff. Maybe not as much stuff as would have been like absolutely dire consequences or circumstances, but there was a lot of stuff that got torn up. A lot of front and rear clips, although some teams allegedly were using previous iterations of the front and rear clips, and once they get to Daytona, they'll actually be using the real stuff. However, at Daytona, there's supposed to be more than 40 cars, so the duels will matter. Racing will get very intense, and if this next-gen race at the Coliseum is anything to go off of, it seems like the NASCAR racing this year is going to be a very, very intense style of racing. And we're one really major wreck away from potentially teams having to withdraw because they just don't have a car. So that's a concern. And the other thing is, once everybody gets to the Daytona 500, it looks like reliability, which is to be expected, by the way, with a new car, is going to be a major concern. We saw several cars just break down suddenly, whether they lost driveline, whether in Hamlin's case, the steering broke on his car. In a 500-mile race, we haven't seen this in a while in NASCAR, but it seems like it'll be a true endurance test, as well as a pack race and as well as a 500-mile battle. That's going to be something to watch during Speed Week, I think, is going to be how and where and when and why cars break down and which teams they're breaking down for, which teams they're not breaking down for. It could be a major factor, and I think the Clash showed that. So that's my thoughts. Again, improvement over Daytona. Looking forward to it next year. It looks like the crowd was acceptable, certainly. Probably 50 of the 60,000 seats were sold, and that's got to be a success. The sponsors have got to like it. I'm sure Fox likes it, so it will be around. Whether you like it or not, of course, that's for the comment section. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube. Subscribe for more motorsport content, and I will see you in the next video.